Today on Navigating Retirement, we're going to talk about the changing face of retirement and investment strategies in retirement, which is also changing. Jeff, let's start with the changing face of retirement. It's a whole lot different today than it used to be. No longer do people work, say, 40 years with the same company, get the gold watch, retire at 65, and then kind of do nothing sort of thing. Tell us what's changed.
Well, retirement was predictable back then. I mean, you knew you hit 65 and that was it. Everybody worked at 65 unless you were somebody who had money and maybe you retired early. Yeah. Today with changes in interest rates and changes in people's health, decisions around retirement have changed dramatically. People, not only that, people want to work, a lot of them want to work longer. They see value in I don't want to just retire and pull a trailer down to Yuma every year. I want to stay active.
You know, a lot of people too, just to add to that point, a lot of people were used to having one job throughout their whole career, right?
That's not the same.
Now there's, you change your career 5 times, right?
Why are people doing that? Is it just
well, I think
variety?
I think variety, and that sort of leads into the second part that a lot of this depends on the retirement type you are. So some people want to be more adventurous in their retirement. Some people want to continue on. Some people want to just retreat and do nothing. So depending upon, the type of retirement you have, I think, as a result of that, there's a lot more research that's going into retirement. So people are taking more interest in it.
I remember when I was in college in the early 80s and we had this one course. It was like a labor relations course and all these sorts of things. And the professor said, in your guys' lifetime, things are different now. He says, you're going to have at least 7 or 8 careers by the time you retire out of work. That same conversation going on today is 10, 20, different jobs.
When you say careers, do you mean like, for example, I've been in broadcasting for a long time, but different places though.
Different places.
Does that count?
So yeah, exactly. So not doing the same thing. So maybe you were behind the camera before and now you're in front of the camera. And
same industry though.
Same industry.
Because that's what you were trained for, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, well, is there any other reasons why we're seeing these shifts? I mean, pensions aren't quite the same, for example, as they used to be.
Yeah, so you've got a shift from defined benefit pension plans where people, companies have large liabilities as a result, and so there's been this huge movement, and I can't remember the exact number, but I know there's been, the number has lowered significantly on a Toronto Stock Exchange in terms of large corporations that actually have defined benefit plans. And they've made a move towards either defined contribution plans or, a group RRSP where they, help with the contribution that way.
And we saw in the news recently this morning, I saw the GM, in order to get a deal in Oshawa for the Canadian plant there, new hires are going to have to switch to defined contribution. I mean, even you see big companies like that shifting that way. It seems like in the private sector, at least, it's a dying breed.
Yeah, and to compound that, for years, I mean, people were savers and they could count on retirement. They would take their cash and buy bonds or annuities, and they would be getting 10, 11%, and it was reasonably predictable. But with rates where they are now, you're earning 1, 2, 3% if you're getting way out there. It's difficult to make a living off of your cash and a defined contribution.
Well, a defined, back to the defined benefit and why companies are shifting.
Well, it's cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah, they've got this huge liability out in the future, and that affects their shareholder value, so their stock price and those sorts of things, right? So I think that they've all taken a look at this with low interest rates and having to adjust the way they manage these pensions. And the future liability with all the baby boomers that are, retiring and living longer, that this is just going to get bigger and bigger.
Could we see the day where only government employees, for example, get defined benefit? I mean, it hardly seems fair.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you said only 15 of the top 60 TSX companies even have it anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that number, so I can't quote that.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the banks and maybe the railways and those kinds of things. But even then, they would like to see their employees shift.
Oh yeah. There's this huge shift as a result of, and it's economic. So that's a big change, and people. So then the burden gets shifted onto the individual, and that causes partly stress in your retirement because you're responsible for your own
You're more responsible
investments.
for yourself, right?
Yeah, that's right, and also you're subject to the fluctuations of the market.
Typically the older generation would sort of retire off and get out of the way and leave room for the younger one, but younger people coming up. But now after 2008, when you had a market blow up and everything else, and all of a sudden it's, well, I feel good, I'll keep working.
I lost so much money on the stock market.
Yeah.
I might have to work a couple extra years.
Yeah, I'm
right?
leveraged out, I'm doing
Yeah.
this, and whatever it is, and so people are saying, I don't need to retire, so why should I? So it's clogging up the back end too.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people these days are not, instead of in the old days just stopping work at 65, they're continuing to work part-time or on a freelance basis, for example. I mean, that's becoming more common, isn't it?
So I have two really good examples. Like I had an individual in last week, and they're looking to retire. So we were going through some planning options and recognizing that they are going to have to work for the next 5 to 10 years at least because of, for financial reasons, but partly, interest reasons too. And so, the husband felt much more comfortable with it because he said, look, you know what, I'll just be a lifty and in the winter. I'll be the oldest lifty out there in the winter because that's always what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work at a golf course, try and get a job as a greenskeeper or whatever in the pro shop, right? And my brother-in-law does that.
That sounds like a good thing. I would.
Yeah, I know, that's a pretty good
retirement.
combination, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, his spouse was a little less comfortable with it because you're moving from a job you've had 30 years where you know what's going on, and you're stepping into an unknown world. Yeah. And I think that's pretty scary for some people. But I think what most people have to realize is that they've created a base, over that 30-year period, and now you're just going through another transition in your life. And arguably, we've retired probably 15 times, right from retiring from kindergarten into all the way
That's
up.
true.
Right?
Yeah. It never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big part of it is the view you have of looking forward into it and stepping into another unknown.
And are people doing different things in retirement because they're perhaps healthier? I don't know. I mean. Travel, and you couldn't travel, say 40, 50 years ago, not like you can today.
You think about, I was talking with my daughter, we were talking about the way travel used to be, and you remember they had books like Greece on $5 a day.
Yeah.
But it would cost you $2,000 to fly over there.
Yeah, or take the boat.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks to get there.
So costs have changed dramatically.
Yeah.
In terms of.
Yeah, and adding to that, technology has really changed a lot, and it's created this information environment where people can, research, set up, come up with these creative ideas on how they're going to retire. And I had an individual who was talking to us, it was at a dinner party, and they're telling me about how they're going horseback riding in, the Sahara Desert for, 3 weeks. And you get to places you'd never get to in your life. So their vision of retirement is more of an adventurous type of.
Machu Picchu is getting crowded, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Everybody wants to go there, right? What else do you see in the changing face of retirement? I mean, what kinds of things are your clients telling you?
Well, I think one thing that is a big part of it. I see more and more people thinking about what their actual purpose is going to be and those sorts of things. But I was reading a research article, and I got to reference this because they had this was done by Fidelity, and they had a word cloud, and they had different associations, and the larger the words were, the more important those things were in retirement. So the first tier was, freedom. People associate freedom with retirement. Contentment was another word. Enjoyment, fun, family, and then so those are all positive in my view.
Yep.
But then the
Freedom
second
sounds
tier,
good. Freedom from working, a set shift and working for someone else, right?
That's right, and choices, having those choices, and that's what people gravitate to. But the second tier, where the words became a little bit smaller, were things like balance, excitement. Then it got into a little more stressful stuff like financial stress, security, poor health, slowing down. And as the words got smaller and smaller, it got more and more negative, like poverty, homeless, boredom, disappointment.
Their fear of excitement and boredom at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's, I guess, the top one was excitement, right? The larger word, but they're in the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, well, I got to make sure I'm not bored.
Yeah.
And so I think there's this view when we talk about the changing face of retirement. There's this view of a more active approach to retirement as opposed to the old Freedom 55 approach where you saw somebody laying around on the beach or doing whatever, right?
I want to talk about a movie I saw the other day. It was a pretty bad movie, actually. Well, what was Robert De Niro thinking? I think it was called The Intern. It was about an older guy. He comes into a young, emerging, technology company, right? I'm not sure if they were trying to be funny or what.
It's a plain movie.
Yeah, but the idea was that that this young, emerging technology company can use the experience of this older guy to help them thrive as a company. I mean, could we see more of that for people coming in on a part-time or freelance basis?
I've read some of that where companies are now looking where they're looking at all kinds of different places, but from a corporate side, but where they can translate somebody's experiences into an advantage, and all they have to do is bridge the technology side. Exactly. That certainly another one which doesn't have anything to do with retirement, but in that vein was companies were starting to focus, particularly high tech, on people in the autistic spectrum. Their abilities were so powerful in certain areas that they could harness that, and so it's almost like there's more and more on the table. And when you talk about retirement, there wasn't a lot of choices 20 years ago.
To your point though, a lot of the clients that I see that are retiring, then that 5 to 10 year transition as they shift into less and less activity. Big one is consulting. People sort of step into this consulting role, and that's what they do for. These
companies value their experience, right? And the fact they've been through several recessions and several changes in technology and things like that, right?
Another one too is, and this is especially true of doctors, where they've actually stepped in as the assistant surgery or those sorts of things, right? They're not necessarily performing.
Everybody wants to keep busy. Not everyone, but a lot of people want to keep busy, right? When in retirement, and they want to do what they did for a living because they're probably good at it, right?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a cultural shift. You really didn't have a choice in retirement before you.
Yeah.
You worked till you were 65, and then you retired. And you weren't going to work till you were older, and you couldn't start an online business. You couldn't do anything. You just retired. Yeah. And all of a sudden, now there's options. Well, I can continue to work. I can start my own business. I can get rehired back by the company I just got laid off for as a contract consultant and write everything off. And
is it easier now? I mean, the jobs aren't as physically demanding in most cases as they used to be.
Yeah.
So a 65, 70, 80-year-old person could do a lot of this job.
That's right. Well, that goes back to that idea of change in technology, right? Mm-hmm. People are using their brains as opposed to physical labor so much. I also wanted to draw another point in, and actually a friend of mine is off today for a trip, but his interest is in photography, and he's sort of taken a real passion towards that. And so his trips
as a hobby or to make some money?
Well, as a hobby, and then he did mention to me the other day. He said, "Gee, maybe I should think about turning it," because he's got some unbelievable pictures. I think he showed us. We were at a dinner party the other night, and he showed us all his pictures of his African vacation. Very colorful and just unbelievable. And everybody said, you should, commercial. These are amazing pictures.
Yeah.
He could even put those on like stock photography sites that will basically hang
there's easier ways nowadays to sell that kind of thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Technology.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll take a break, and after the break, we'll come back and talk about something else that's changing, and that is investment strategies in retirement.